The sitting is resumed. Prior to the suspension, this Honourable Chairman was debating the Appropriation Bill 2026 in Standing Finance Committee. We revert to Standing Finance Committee.
We resume Standing Finance Committee. Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you. Minister, energy independence has been the buzzword in your ministry, and rightfully so. If I want to take myself and use it as an example, I would love to know the day that I'm able to access batteries to be able to come off the grid independently, like a lot of Barbadians. We know there are challenges as it relates to abatement technologies around the world. And this global challenge is not independent of Barbados. Barbados depends on trade, on activities as it surrounds access. What is your ministry doing to be able to help Barbadians to access this technology, especially batteries? And what are the challenges that we are having in the international sphere that seems to be making it very difficult for us to transition in a just way? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. With regard to the latter part of your question, I think one of the first considerations that we have to be mindful of is that the orders that we make in Barbados are, and our problem, frankly speaking, is not limited to the international sphere. Let me be very clear about that. But with regard to the international sphere, one of the realities that we have to confront is the smallness of size. And when we make an order, it is just like what we went through with COVID and the vaccines. We make an order for a commodity, but we have at such a small scale, it is infinitesimal compared to what others are asking or ordering. And so therefore we are never given priority. And in a point, for example, when we were first having this conversation, the Russia-Ukraine war was beginning, and the entire world was moving almost as one with regard to the effort to source battery storage. And so therefore prioritizing Little Barbados really became, for the producer, a matter of a nuisance. It's a waste of time when I can make, for the same effort, I can get sometimes 10, 15, 20, maybe 100 times more money than what I get off of Barbados. And that's just one of the realities. But let me come to the substantive domestic issue, because I think your question is vitally important and we have to confront it. We have come to the point where our grid has reached its thermal limit. And as a result of that, unless the grid is given necessary support, there is a modernization. There is really no ability to make significant connections. In other words, we need now to have battery storage in order to go forward. I think that it is, and I'm going to ask Mr. Brian Haynes, who is the Renewable Energy Director, to take follow carefully what I'm saying so that he can backstop me, as I will invite him to do. But today we have 103 megawatts of solar photovoltaics connected to our grid. But at the same time, we have 134 megawatts of solar PV, which has been blessed with approval in terms of licenses having been granted, but they are not yet connected. And the reason why they're not yet connected is because of the state of the grid, its incapacity to go further without battery storage. So that you have a situation where you have 237 megawatts of solar PV accounted for. We do not just do this blindly, like, swiping like blind elder. There is a guiding, I suppose, principle set down by what has been called an integrated resource and resilience plan, which is a very careful study, and like any other study, it is really only a moment in time. But when the study was done, there was a recommendation, two things. One, we need to have an energy mix in Barbados. You should not be reliant only on one form of renewables. And so therefore we are looking at a mix, and that will include wind and other things, hydrogen, etc. And equally, that for renewables, the limit set was 387 megawatts. So that if you are at 237, really and truly, you have roughly 150 megawatts of additional capacity of solar photovoltaic to go onto the grid. Obviously, where demand grows, then there will be a need for greater capacity and allocation of that increased capacity. We have a duty to try to increase the level of demand by increasing the growth of the economy. And so therefore, as there are more investments, more people employed, more houses being built, etc., greater demand, and people will want to have access to this particular form of energy. But coming to storage, that state of affairs where we now are means that we must now move speedily to get the storage onto the grid, and that the batteries therefore become important. Before I became minister, the FTC, Fair Trade Commission, would have approved 60 megawatts of battery storage for Barbados. My own personal judgment is that we're going to need more, but that is where we are right now. And a request for proposals for the investment in battery storage was issued in November of 2025 when Senator Cummins was Minister of Energy. That request for proposals had set a closing date of 6th of March this year, 2026. The market itself, which is the people who will be making the proposal, the people who are the investors, are saying that they want more time. I want to emphasize that the market is asking for more time, not the government. So that they're saying that, and I think they have asked for extensions on the basis of needing what in law we will call further and better particulars, PS, and that there may be as many as 184 requests of different types from the market so as to enable them to better be prepared in order to make their respective proposals. So that has come to me, and I have agreed that I will give them an extended period of time, and that I have drawn a line in the sand at the 30th of April, 2026. So that is the new closing date. I am advised that that is within the authority of the minister so to do. So that April the 30th has been, and I think that there is a formal process for that notification. So the notification really is not coming from Parliament. The notification will follow the correct process to be followed. But I want to say that there is now going to be a need for us to do a few things in order, as you are saying, for us to advance this process further. I am advised that once the procurement has begun, we are going to have a minimum of two, and this is a worst case scenario. There would be a minimum of two entities providing those 60 megawatts, so that the maximum that any one entity can make as an investment will be 30 megawatts. Now, that may seem trite, but the cost of 1 megawatt battery storage runs into millions of dollars. However, my own philosophical belief, and it has been from the very beginning, I was the minister who brought to this parliament the householders' right to renewable energy. And you will recall that the principle behind that was to ensure that we democratized the process and that we gave average Barbadians an opportunity to play, to be in the space and to earn from the space. And philosophically, I remain anchored to that view. I do not feel that we can continue to have new sectors evolve as a policy of this government, to have sectors evolve for the first time and it be treated as the way in which we treated the move from the plantation economy, where there was a too few in control and many peasants who had no ownership or control. And then we went to tourism and we saw it happen all over again, where there were a too few in control and many Barbadians who are at the lower rungs of the ladder in the tourism and hospitality sector. And in the international business sector, we saw that happen yet again. And I refuse to accept that we can be looked upon favorably by generations to come if we allow it to happen in renewable energy, and quite frankly, if we allow it to happen with regard to the battery storage component of renewable energy. So that, for me, the avoidance of market consolidation is an important consideration. Now, I believe that there are many ways in which we can approach this problem, but I'm just sharing with you because you asked me my perspective, and I'm giving that to you. But worst case scenario, in my view, I know for some people it will be the best case scenario, but there will be a minimum of 2 players for that 60 megawatts. I would want to see far more people being involved in the battery storage exercise. And I know that there are many people who have crafted their own applications. Now, there are some difficulties, and I'm going to ask Brian Haynes to speak to these challenges because we have to make sure that the portal is once again reopened and that people can have their application processed, considered and processed. I believe it is necessary for us also to have a procurement committee that is functional, and that procurement committee, as I understand it, is supposed to involve many departments of government, including town planning and government procurement and government electrical engineering and Fair Trade Commission and so on. I myself have spoken very briefly to the new Minister of Planning on this matter, and I think she and I are going to have a sit down because once again, questions of efficiency will arise. How you enter the system. You will recall that when we came to government, we found a vulgar system, in my view, where you could enter make an application for renewable energy, a PV license, from many different places. And so therefore, there were some people who went straight to the light and power. And government had no knowledge, the Ministry of Energy had no knowledge, and therefore the Ministry of Energy had no oversight over what was happening once those people entered the system. But then when matters didn't go as they would have them go, government that never knew about it was lambasted for a hold-up. And some people even went so far as to go through the process, put things on their roof, put systems on their roof. And
Honourable Minister, put some systems.
Oh, sorry, I forgot the time constraint.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
I feel so strongly about this, Mr. Chairman. I feel so strongly about this, but let me not go there now. There will be opportunity for that. I would invite Mr. Haynes to speak to this issue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. And thank the Honourable Member for the question. The process by which we are seeking, and your question towards the area of energy independence and storage is once again a very vital question you've raised and a very important component in making sure we make the transition. Storage is a very critical element in this process, not only for the grid itself, but also, as Minister has indicated, the democratization of the sector to allow more persons to come on to the grid in a safe and manageable way, but within the confines of the limits of what is demanded out in the market. In that regard, we have, as been mentioned, but I will elaborate, we have about 3 major methods, 2 of which have been really brought into force. The first is, as been mentioned, is the procurement method, where we bring on 60 megawatts. We're looking to bring on 60 megawatts. The second one is through the energy storage tariff method, which is a smaller process which deals with the 1 megawatt storage, which would attain to the householders and small businesses and also larger businesses. And what this two-pronged approach thus far will achieve is to ensure that there is a level of independence for the nation as a whole, but also gives some independence for the general public as well. Now, we have to be cautious there because we are a small market and we are not an intercontinental environment or market. We are island. And in that regard, we have to do that being mindful of the costs and how that cost is addressed and the burden that is borne by the market. So what we are speaking of here is to make sure that as more persons become, as you say, independent, we don't want to have a situation where persons remove themselves from the grid entirely. What that does is that it means that less demand is available on which we spread our costs. So we have to balance it in a way which we have, where we said for smaller systems, the 3 kilowatt systems and so on, you can have your sale of access, where you are able to sell you have your storage, you have your production, but you're able to sell your access to the grid and you have your independence there. We've limited it in that regard for smaller households. Indeed, for storage as a whole, we've indicated that through our integrated resource and resiliency planning, a total of about 370 megawatts of storage coming onto the grid. This is required to support the grid and to make sure that we strengthen the grid to be able to carry renewable energy, in particular the variable type, which is wind, solar, and that technology of that ilk. In addition, we have started what is called a virtual power plant pilot project. We are in the design phases, and that project allows for amalgamation of or grouping of the technology such as the RE and the storage to provide an additional layer of support for the grid, and also an additional area where the public can become involved now in providing services to the grid, along with storage. As well, there's the move. As part of that project, we are also working towards vehicle to grid, where persons who have your electric vehicles, you will be able to provide support. Of course, there's a cost which you will be compensated for over time, but the work of the pilot now is to see, consumer behavior, what the regulatory arrangements will be, and also to work with our stakeholders such as the utility and our partners, the Fair Trading Commission, to make sure that we get the regulatory environment working. We are starting on a small set of projects first, so we get the regulatory environment correct, so we identify how we should tariff these things and how can we bring that independence together in the market while simultaneously ensuring that we keep it at a cost-effective level. So that is the approach in terms of, in that area. Minister raised that we did have some challenges in terms of the developing the process for applications to make sure that we allow for all those persons who want to participate in the storage arrangements. We have gone live with our application process for that in November of last year. Indeed, we have received up to 96 submissions for applications thus far, and we are in the process of carrying out work to validate. Once we validate those applications and identify them as real applications, because there are some things that are missing from these applications on some occasions that we have to work with the potential applicants to make sure that they are, consistent with what is required, so that safe deployment of these types of resources can be achieved. So this means now that it allows for renewable energy to come onto the grid. Those projects that were, built but have not been connected are going to be at a high level of priority within this process, as well as those who have been built, connected, but have been curtailed. And we are going to work in such a way that we ensuring that all those systems that Minister has referenced that we have to connect are within that priority to ensure that the government upholds its obligation as they have been licensed within that regard. So I just wanted to make sure that we are clear in that instance, and it will go through the process, and once we have addressed all those issues, we anticipate within the coming 3 or so months that we'll be able to start seeing those applications becoming licenses or going to our advisory committee for recommendation for approval, and from there we anticipate within the 12-month period or 18-month period that storage, we will start to see the storage coming on to the system.
Minister, I want to thank you and your team for that extensive explanation and elucidation on the matter. But to me, we are dealing with a double-edged sword, because the access to abatement technology is one issue. The another issue in my mind, which has been causing a lot of atmospheric noise, is the issue that surrounds the decommissioning, especially of batteries, which we know cannot, by all environmental circumstances, enter into the landfill as a means of decommissioning. I know that, Minister, your legislation and your policy first and legislation spoke to an extensive plan which had the unreserved backing of the EPD. And that plan and policy, and law, Minister, I know that your ministry would have taken the time to expose to Barbadians the importance of companies having a decommissioning plan for these batteries. I want you to be able to neuter this atmospheric noise, unfortunately, and to let Barbadians know that we do have a plan that is recognized internationally as a solid plan for the way how we treat to these batteries at the end of the shelf life, which may be 5-10 years down the line.
I thank you, Minister, and you heard me on this matter of decommissioning without being provoked this morning. And I go back there again. This minister does not fathom that we should ever go back to what we have gone through with Mobile for the last 1/2 of a century, with a major investor coming to this country and leaving a sordid environmental mess that we then have to find a way of fixing. And that should never happen again. So I can only say to you, I need no persuasion whatsoever on the question of decommissioning of any technology whatsoever. When I had the opportunity to, in the previous iteration as this minister in this ministry, one of my first requirements was to sit as part of that body, that team that were negotiating with the Light and Power on licenses. And I know it is written into the license that there must be decommissioning protocol. And equally, there's the establishment of a decommissioning fund. And I would want to invite, again, Mr. Brian Haynes, who was integral to a lot of that work, to speak to some of the issues surrounding the decommissioning fund. I cannot, honestly, from the top of mind now, the memory, and I don't trust the memory to give that to the House accurately. I'm hoping that Mr. Haynes can do so. Thank you.
Yes, in terms of, thank you again, ministers. In terms, and Chair, in terms of the decommissioning and work around, especially around storage, a significant part of the applications that come before us has to address energy storage management plan. Each applicant have to come, not only how are they going to decommission, but how are they going to manage that storage system during the life of that system. For example, in terms of how are they going to deal with any leaching that may come from those batteries, how they are going to deal with fire suppression, and so on in terms of safety. In terms of the environmental components, it is a requirement within that plan that they must specify the management of these batteries within the particular areas with which they are going to be deployed. We are working with our partners, EPD and so on, to ensure that with the larger systems as well as the smaller systems, that there is a decommissioning plan that will come with the procurements of these battery systems. And what we want to ensure is that when these systems reach their end of life, that the environment is returned to its natural state as much as possible, and it is not being a burden on the people in the surrounding communities of those systems, as well as to the country and to the purse of the country. Part of that plan would be a fund that they have to address, and they would have to make sure that the plan and the funding that they are bringing for decommissioning will have to match. They are allowed to reevaluate the plan over the life, and as a result of that, there may be adjustments to how they are going to fund decommissioning. So within that, those considerations, the ministry has been working over the last few years and continue to work to ensure that we bring storage, and particularly battery storage, to be deployed as safely as possible, and working with our partners in the system.
Just to finally say that legislation that you have also extends itself to the automobile industry as well.
Yes,
Yeah, it does.
yes, correct.
Right, thanks.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My first question, and I hope that I get an opportunity to ask some of the others, but just in case time runs out, this relates to vending zones. I've heard, Minister, what you said in your introduction. I believe that we can use this opportunity to share some more particulars with the public. I'm asking this because there was much expectation when the vending bill was passed, and we recognize, when I say we, I'm referring to residents in St. Peter, in St. Lucie as well, that not very much was done, and that term might even be generous. We have recently been asked to resubmit some information to your ministry, and I am confident that we will see some progress. The question I have is the idea of vending zones embedded in the philosophy of the ministry, or is it dependent on instruction? I don't mean to be overly provocative or even bad, to use a good old Russell term, but because of what we haven't seen for the past 4 years or so, I just want to be clear, to be sure that what my constituents and other constituents in the North expect out of the vending bill, with particular reference to those zones, is going to materialize. And then when I spoke about being more fulsome, if the answer is yes, that we're going to be moving forward, as I expect it will be, then what do vendors, what can they expect to see or to feel with respect to what these zones will look like? I think it is important for them to understand what is coming for them, but to hear it not from us as the MPs, but directly from the ministry responsible.
Thank you for the question, Minister. I begin on the very pertinent point of whether it is embedded in the philosophy of the ministry. I want to say to you that it is embedded in the philosophy of the minister. And I believe that the ministry has shown me absolutely no resistance to the idea. As I have said, it is an idea whose time has come. I do not in any way blame the ministry. We, again, for the delay, I think we, again, have to be mindful of the fact that we embarked on a transformational idea, pregnant in the anticipation and the belief that that which had never been done in Barbados before could easily be done. We had to collide with certain realities, one of which is that the legislation which we ourselves drafted and had to draft made requirements of us that had to be confronted, but the government itself, coming out of COVID, did not have the capacity to immediately meet those legislative requirements. That's just simply a fact. One of those requirements, for example, was that once you go to a place where vending is taking place and there has been some reason to intervene by law, and you take possession of a vendor's produce, then there is now a legal claim that the vendor can mount against the state. In all of the history of Barbados, that was never possible. policemen would come and take up whatever they got to take up or trample the vendors' products or whatever, and there was no question of compensation for that loss. Now, there is that issue. And so therefore, there's a requirement on the part of the state to provide an appropriate storage facility for any produce that may have, for whatever reason, to be removed from the possession of a vendor. And we didn't have that. And we had to have within the financing of the Ministry of Agriculture's budget that capacity. And I think it is correct to say that we've now gotten there. But equally, there was not a capacity in the Ministry of Energy and Business at that time to do the construction of the vending zones, neither financially nor, quite frankly, in terms of the project management expertise and experience. And so therefore, we ventured out, almost going to sea in a Moses. The fact of the matter is, we've gotten those things right by dint of effort and experience, and I think we are now in a position to do far better and to move far faster. And again, I have to say to you, I am indebted to my predecessor ministers in this ministry, Minister Cummins and former Minister Sutherland, for the preparatory work that had been done to get us to the point where we are here right now. Now, I think every member of this House, as I said before, would have received, as a result of my express request, that the ministry write to every member so as that every constituency representative will have an opportunity to indicate to us where he or she would want to see the vending zones located in their constituency. Honourable member, I want to be candid with you. When I first did that, just before I left the ministry, I did not get a reply from everybody. And so therefore, I think that when we speak about going slowly, sometimes we have to also look into, not necessarily you, but we have to look into the mirror, because we could go far faster if everybody was moving to the beat of a common drum. Having said that, this is where we are right now. What will it look like? First of all, we want to make sure that this is a hospitable environment introduced to vending. I know for a long time the cultural practice in Barbados has been that you go and get a little coconut water, and it dawns on nobody, man, woman, or child, that the person selling you this coconut water has been there since 7 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and will be there until 4 o'clock alongside the road. And nowhere within eyesight of that vendor or the person visiting the vendor is there a pipe to wash their hands, a bathroom to be found if the person has to relieve him or herself. And the reality is that we all know that we have bodily function. And so therefore, a healthy environment within which we again have standards, and this economy must, I am going to say this, if it sticks, let me put it differently, until my dying day, I will say this: we have to have an economy where we introduce and maintain standards. It is in the best interest of the business community, I mean in the community of vendors, and it is in the best interest of their clients that there be basic bathroom facilities. We're going to have that. Equally, we have to have Wi-Fi, because we're in an era now where we're moving towards a cashless society and economy. And therefore, I share the ambition with the Minister of Finance that I could pull out my cell phone and go in front of my coconut vendor and move funds from my account to his seamlessly, and don't have to have a dollar bill involved in the process. And that makes life safer for him, because those who are charged with responsibility for law and order in this parliament and in this government know that there have been multiple instances where men get, what is the term used? Stick up. I don't think we say stick up anymore, there, AG. Men, there's a different term. jack up maybe. But for the fact that they're walking about with money in the pocket in circumstances where they're unprotected. Equally, I think that there must be not only Wi-Fi, but lighting. I do not know why we feel that vending is a business process that should end at sunset. And I know of no economy in the world where people can't do their vending, a serious economy that is, across hours. Now, the fact of the matter is, this dawned on me when I was about the government's business as a tourism minister in Ghana. And I saw families coming out to vending zones in Ghana as a family evening exercise, where they were coming to eat the food that was there, coming to buy the coconut water experience, coming to buy cloth, coming to buy whatever was being sold, but in that area that they were using as a zone. And it was almost like a place of recreation at 8 o'clock at night. Now, we know in Barbados that has come to an end in Barbados by the time it started to get dark. So I think that we have to light it, we have to have in the Wi-Fi, we have to have in the bathroom facilities. We also have to have vending zones that offer a plurality of experiences, as is happening elsewhere, so that you can get some food to eat. You can have those people in your constituencies who are competent cooks being able to make $1 off of their competence. Equally, I think it is vitally important that we have the people who are doing nail tech, the people who are doing barbering, the people who are doing a range of other crafts and businesses, having their opportunity to have a stake in the vending zone experience. And that is the way in which we collectively have a means of lifting the tide, so that many, many ships can now sail on a financially successful voyage. So I believe that that is really what it would look like, and that is the reason why I have again asked for every member to be written to, so that we can plan. There's $2 million $2.5 million in the budget, and I think that obviously we can't do every vending zone in Barbados one time, but what we must be able to do is to plan and prioritize and roll out in a systematic and seamless manner, because different locations will require different things, and therefore different competencies of government departments would have to be brought to bear. The Ministry of Energy and Business will not do the building themselves, but we will have, I think it is to be done via rural and urban development in partnership with us. But I want to give the Chief Business Development Officer, Mr. Anderson Cumberbatch, an opportunity to speak a little bit to the history that you have pointed to, Honourable Member, and to the thinking of the ministry, because you asked whether the ministry was philosophically aligned, and I will allow their Chief Business Development Representative to speak to that.
Good morning.
I should say he's now acting Deputy PS as well.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. I am Anderson Cumberbatch, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Administration. Substantive post is Chief Business Development Advisor, responsible for this aspect of the work. I would first want to give reminder that the National Vending Facilities Program is an initiative under the wider National Vending Policy Framework, which I think most of us know was established in 2021 to achieve a number of goals. 3 of these goals were to empower vendors by promoting decent and safe work in which they can operate free of harassment and discrimination, and generally to allow vendors to legitimately play their trade in an atmosphere where there's mutual trust among our vendors, government, and other relevant stakeholders, including the general public. Secondly, the policy spoke to the need to decriminalize vending and to reduce the incidence of vendors feeling ostracized and marginalized, while promoting vending as a viable career option. And thirdly, the whole notion of promoting vending was to facilitate economic enfranchisement within the general Barbadian society. So of course I concur with Minister when we speak about the philosophy embedded in the ministry, and not only the ministry, but I believe the government of Barbados, where we are trying to promote vending across all walks of life, and to participate in vending as what we regard as a very noble activity. Now, we would have started with, there were about 8 vending zones that were identified, and as Minister would have indicated, we are now looking to establish 2 vending facilities across the 30 constituencies. much of this preliminary work would have been undertaken, and we would have confirmed at least 14 locations across each of the parishes in Barbados. But as we know, we're waiting on the responses from various parliamentarians so that we can add to this list. I also want to report that, and you new parliamentarians, you can submit your responses as soon as possible so that we can include you in this aspect of our work. I'm also pleased to report to this honorable house and to Barbados today that the Redmonds Village facility is on schedule to be completed at the end of this month, and the Fitz Village vending facility will be completed at the end of April 2026. We would have established a stakeholder relationship with the Rural and Development Commission, and as a matter of fact, we have pivoted to what is referred to as the design-build maintenance model, where we would work collaboratively with this agency so that we can be better positioned to execute on the vending program. Obviously, while we are looking at these new locations from within the various constituencies, we're still going to be working on the Top Rock, the Newton, and the Haggett Hall vending zones. What we're looking at when we would have had our site visits with the Planning and Development Department, we're looking at, for example, are the lands, government lands, are there any encumbrances on the land, access to foot and vehicular traffic and so on. And the focus is not only on the buildings themselves, but what we have to look at are the persons who would be the entrepreneurs within these facilities to provide business development training and so on, financial literacy training. So essentially, I think that we are, not I think, I know that we are in a good place where we can execute on these vending zones. And to answer our minister in relation to his question, we are well on our way to execute this time around. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am happy to hear that, especially given that I just celebrated the 4th anniversary of sending my list of vending zones to the ministry. The date of the email is actually 28th of February 2022. So this is a very nice anniversary, 4th anniversary gift, just to remind that the pursuit of perfection is often the enemy of the good. And I'm not sure that you will want to wait for everybody before you start. You obviously did not, because you mentioned one opening at the end of this month and one at the end of April. So you have not waited, and we look forward to that. I want to ask another question, a follow-up. Now, you've spoken about the physical, and I believe that those who are hearing understand the physical. The question I have, the follow-up to that, is there going to be, and this is probably in light of what was discussed with respect to trust loans and, excuse me, and clustering, is there any intention at the level of the vending zones, or I don't remember, you use a nicer term than zones, but is there any intention there to maybe incorporate either a clustering or a cooperative model, or to encourage? I'm asking that because I know that your ministry also does significant work with respect to cooperatives, but the public doesn't often hear about the work of the cooperatives department. And I'm wondering if vending zones, given that it relates to persons who are gathered in a particular geographical space, even more so than the clustering, where you're not necessarily in the same geographical space. In a zone you are. Is there any thought about maybe expanding the work or developing the work, or probably making public the work of the cooperative department with respect to developing those vending zones? I ask that question also because this is now a little bit not parochial, but I'm aware that the International Labour Organization does significant work with respect to cooperatives. It is one of the areas that they've been working on for probably a little bit more than 100 years. But I don't hear anything from our cooperatives department in that light. So I'm just wondering if the vending zones could be an opportunity to expand that work in the development of that sector.
Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. And the question really admits of two approaches to the answer. One of which is really to give you an opportunity to hear from the Registrar of Cooperatives, Mr. Brent Gittins, who is with us on this team, as to some of the, I suppose, not just challenges, but the opportunities which I believe can present themselves once we have modernized the cooperatives legislation in Barbados. To answer your question via the other limb would be for me to say to you that I want to begin with the vending zones as outlined by, or identified rather, by honourable members, by also engaging with honourable members, again, on the question of how we populate the vending zones. It is entirely within the right of an honourable member to assist or to guide this ministry with regard to the people who will be the business persons given the opportunity in the vending zones. I perfectly understand that. But I do feel that it is important, and I will certainly write to honourable members and to the cooperatives that exist in Barbados to find a way in which we can have cooperative experiences being located within vending opportunities. There is an excellent example of that, I believe, in the constituency of the honourable member for St. George North, where there is a cooperative vending facility in that constituency. And I don't see any reason why we cannot have some sort of a mixed approach, the individuals and also the cooperatives who may wish to have a presence. Again, my approach to these things, honourable member, is to be as inclusive as possible. I know that for some people, it appears to be tiresome and it appears to be repetitious, but that is the reason why I wrote to everybody, because I really want to make sure we do not leave anybody behind. And I know that there are many members who have not, even though you, honourable member, would have received 3 or 4 iterations of an invitation across different ministers. The truth of the matter is, I want to make sure we have everybody on board as we go forward. And it is in that principle, that precept of inclusivity, that I also feel we have to look at the situation with our cooperatives, because this gives not only individual traders and small and micro business people opportunity, but it gives market opportunities for existing cooperatives or cooperatives that will be created. And I think that expansion of the collective endeavor equally is important. Now, Mr. Gittins probably would have had an opportunity by now to take his seat behind me. So I would want to give him a chance to share his thoughts on this matter.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brent Gittins, Registrar of Cooperatives. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Honourable Ministers. I think the concept of cooperatives being involved in the vending zones is a very good one. It means that individual vendors can cut down on costs, they can share expenses, they can be part of a people-centered enterprise in which they share the services and the benefits of that enterprise. That is what a cooperative is, a democratically run organization, and it can be anything. So the vending zones can be transformed from individual vendors to a cooperative which has a group of vendors which are doing business, reducing their costs, their economies of scale is much better than if they're operating individually. So I would suggest that I have a very nice little chat with the Chief Business Development Officer and my minister. I will have a chat with them to see how best we can move forward with a cooperative that addresses those vending zones, because I think that more and more Barbadians are becoming aware of the cooperative business model. I think last year, the Cooperatives Department would have been in every parish in aligning ourselves with the regathering initiative. We would have engaged quite a number of persons about the cooperative business model. Coming out of that engagement, we formed 3 cooperatives, one in agriculture, one in beekeeping, one in agriculture, beekeeping, and construction. We're also on stream to register another cooperative in fisheries. The fisher folk of Barbados have indicated that they think that is a good way to go as well. We have another one in construction coming. I would say that this year we plan to increase our visibility via social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I think we definitely need to increase our profile. We will continue going into the communities. Sometimes we would go with the trust loan fund, so I will give Mr. Amos a little scolding. He didn't tell me about the going into Christchurch initiative that we usually will team up with the trust loan fund and other sectors of the ministry. We team up with the financial literacy program. We do outreach with the youth entrepreneurial scheme. So we do understand that we need to increase our visibility. We will also be working with the ILO we're looking at this year to amend and upgrade our legislation. We do have contacts with the ILO, so we will be working with them with that. We're also looking to create a written national policy, cooperative policy for the cooperative movement to look at improved governance, sustainability, and other areas that we know that need to be strengthened. So I think this year looks like a good year to definitely increase our visibility to make the public more aware what the cooperatives is doing. And I anticipate that if the situation comes up for us to form a cooperative with the vendors, I can see that being something that we would welcome at the Cooperatives Department. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one other policy intervention, it would simply be to say that the legislation, which obviously is going to have to follow on the policy development work that the registrar is just referring to, is going to require us to make it easier for people to form a cooperative in Barbados. In fact, irrespective of the outcome of that policy work, I think we are going to have to swiftly engage on this question of how easy it is to form a cooperative. At present, you would need to have as many, I think, of 10 people who are similarly oriented. We need to make it easier because of the fact that simplicity and in terms of the numbers enables in small societies like ours, a few people who are anxious to move fast. And I think this is one of the opportunities that will enable us to capitalize on things like the vending zones, where you can have, even within one community, a couple of people who come together, and they may not wish to incorporate a business or do anything like that, but rather just to come together because they share a common interest in some area of economic activity. maybe cooking, it may be craft, it may be whatever. And then they are able to form their little enterprise and do business within a space that is a stone's throw away from where they live, or certainly within the general geographic area. I think that these are some of the ways in which we have to make the interventions real. And as I said at the very beginning, I believe we have to meet people where they are and make it easier for them to do business. And that is where I see the merit in the suggestion from the Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much. No other follow-up questions, but just a comment, a closing comment to thank you and the ministry for the work and to the registrar through you for the work done so far. I'm pleased to hear about the outreach to the ILO. The Honourable Member for St. George North is an active member of the governing body. We'll be able to help you if you have any, as we're using colloquial terms, any stick-up. Also to say to you that the Decent Work Country program that Barbados signed last year with the ILO includes a segment on the social and solidarity economy. And it is in that space that the ILO does a lot of its cooperative work, so that I will have my ministry also reach out proactively to include the cooperatives department if it is your desire, so that we can have some collaboration where that is concerned. But also we stand ready to help with direct intervention with your approach or your reaching out to the ILO in a more general way. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Okay. Chair. Go ahead. You can break. Yeah.
Honourable Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
Question is that I do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:20
The question is that this honourable chairman will be suspended until 2:20 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chairman stands suspended until 2:20 p.m.